All right. Hello and welcome to episode 261 of Together BHA. I mean, we're gonna talk about a lot today. We've got the end of the transfer window to talk about. We've got Crawley Town at home to talk about a little bit. I don't really want to give them too much airtime, frankly. And then obviously Arsenal and the season so far. But I mean, let's just give us an all-encompassing vibe check here, Craig. 7 points from 9 to start the season before the first international break. How are we feeling?
Yeah, well, where's your mojo, right? So it's a bit of an echo. Mojo's at like a 9, right? Like I think the only thing is just the injuries are already piling up. So we'll talk about those in a little bit. But mojo's very good. I think there's obviously a lot to talk about. But yeah, where are you at 1 to 10?
I mean, yeah, same, like 9. 8.5, the extra 0.5, just still fury on that Williams tackle. But no, like honestly, it's as high as it can get really without being like top of the league. Like you've literally I mean, when we first started the season, I think for me, I was expecting 4 points from the first two and then nothing at Arsenal, right? So like 4 from 9. We took 7. Like I thought a point at either Everton or United, because the way United finished the season, right? Like they were really good. Like, so I thought, okay, they're going to be a problem. Like 4 from 6 out of those 2 games would be a tremendous start. And then Arsenal is a free hit. So to come away with 2 wins before it even started at Arsenal and then to get the result we did, yeah, phenomenal.
It's good.
So January transfer window closed, 2 days on Friday, didn't it? Slam shut, as they love to say. So Ruta, Minty, Weaver, Gruder, Kadioglu, O'Reilly, Osman Galkoye, Kozia Dewberry. I think that's all of them. How do you rate that transfer window in Albion history in your lifetime?
I mean, it's mental, isn't it? Like it's been very well documented just how much we've spent or the amount of people you've got coming in. I think it's nice to see that a manager's being backed and going, right, okay, we're going to spend what we've made, right? And I think this is where you've got a lot of people that don't know the story or don't really pay attention. It's like, yeah, we're spending the money that we made. Like this isn't being sort of bankrolled. We earned these profits, right? So it's good to see. We sort of looked at that and went, okay, this is the right time to refresh and build because everyone else seemingly has to sell. So it worked really well. I think the people coming in is really good. I think we were talking about it in the chat the other day. It's just a shame that the majority of them are probably injured, right? So like, you know, we're starting Arsenal, we're starting Man United with only Minte really is the main new signing out of the summer window. So you start talking about how much money we spent. Well, actually, these last 3 games, we've only used 1 or 2 of those new signings. So you go 7 from 9, you go through in the Carabao Cup, you know, unbeaten still, and you've only used 1 or 2 of your new signings. So Ruta's the second one, right? I'm forgetting about him, but good window, very good window. Just a shame to lose Gross and Gilmore. I think that's the main ick that I have with the window. But what about yourself?
Yeah, I don't have as much of a nick on Gross because I'm really happy for him. Like I'm sure you are too, obviously. But I don't feel as much pain as I think I would have if he'd have just if he would have done what reports suggest Gilmore has done and thrown his toys out the pram to get out last minute, right? Gross has given us 5 times the amount to this club that Gilmore has, and frankly, like basically any other player in the 11 bar in Lewis Dunk, right? Like in his career. So like I can't begrudge him wanting to leave. And he's already doing really well for Dortmund. So like amazing stuff. But yeah, I'm gutted with Gilmore because it's sad to see him play so well against United, and then to hear that like he essentially like threw a tantrum in the last 24 hours before the window closed, like politely put by basically every sports journo that in the last 24 hours he's demanded to leave. Like I can imagine how that went down. Shades of Moises Caicedo, right? Like it then like ruins the vibe a little bit because it's like, well, go away then. Like I don't want you here if you don't want to be here. Like go play alongside Scott McTominay at Napoli.
I mean, and Naples is there are worse places to be than Naples. So like fair. I don't know about the Gilmore thing, because I can only assume that he was told that he was okay to leave, right? Because you had your Milner, your Viper, your centre mids are pretty much stacked up. We get a couple of injuries that we can't, the Matt O'Reilly thing we'll come on to in a bit, but it's you've hit a couple of injuries, and now Milner's come off injured against Arsenal. You go, actually, no, we need you now. And he's gone, well, tough luck. Like, you already told me that I can go. You've already dangled that carrot. Like, I want to take the carrot. So, like, I can see it from maybe his side of the view. Rather than going, you can go, oh, wait, no, circumstances have changed. We now need you to stay. Nobody knows what's happened behind the scenes, right? But I can only assume that he was given the green light and then that turned to red. And now he's sort of, I guess the goalposts have changed. So it's a shame to lose him regardless, right? Irrelevant of the scenario. I think he's a really good player. I think he'll do well in Italian football too, especially under Conte. So all the power to him. It's just a shame at this current predicament. It would have been nice to have him in the squad.
Yeah, agreed. And one other thing to note here is, like, our loan army is an incredibly strong list of names this year as well. Buonanotte, Barco, Osman, Seema, Sarmiento, Yalkoye, Rushworth, Moran, Cozier, Dewberry, McGill, and Offia all went on loan in basically the last 7 days. Wow, like, absolutely crazy strength. Like, that's almost an entire 11 of players that could feasibly be playing for Brighton in 2 years' time, isn't it? Like, it's working the system exactly how intended, right? Like, it's the way Chelsea could only dream of at this point, with their 24 players playing with the reserves.
It looks smart, right? Like, it all happened very quickly, but I think all of them were justified. I think, barring, you could probably bring Sarmiento in. I don't know how you feel about Sarmiento going out on loan, but it could have gone either way for me. But I don't know what you think about that one. Otherwise, I'm good.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I really like him. I really like Sarmiento. I thought once Buonanotte went out and Cozier Dewberry was following him, I thought that would be it. But I mean, again, like, the strength and depth in that area is insane. I mean, like, it's also hard to complain too much when you're taking off, like, players yesterday and bringing on Ruta and Dingren and Ciso as backups, right? Like, even if, like, 2 people go down, like, we've got an insane strength and depth in that area. And we've got players that are still yet to come back from injury as well, right? So, like, yeah, it was one of those things where, like, I would have liked to have kept him, but I understand that if he wants game time regularly, like, he definitely should go out. And at the end of the day, he's going to what is going to be an incredibly strong Burnley team in the Championship. And I just hope that he gets more game time than he did at Ipswich. Like, that would be my only hope. Like, if he's going to go, then, like, let's get game time.
And I think that goes with everyone, though, right? I think at the same time, it's like, you don't want to see Cozier Dewberry on the Blackburn bench. You don't want to see Moran on the Stoke bench, like, those sort of things. Like, that's the main or the key part. Like, also, just if you're playing in a Burnley team, really strong Burnley team, you're going to be attacking a lot. That's good for an attacking player, right? Hull City with Rushworth, you want him to be facing shots. It's this weird counterintuitive thing with lone players where you're like, no, I want them to be in trouble. Like, I want them to face that sort of adversity, if you like. So, I think all the loans are justified. I think the only one I was questioning was Sarmiento, really. But like you said, the depth is there. You're even forgetting, but we didn't mention Gruder and Kalioglu that can also do some form of wing work in that respect. So it's a deep squad. You're 7 from 9. You're through the cup. You have a really good window. You've made all the right choices. So yeah, Mojo's at a 9, right? Like, it's just the injuries that are killing us.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, talking about the injuries, let's get onto the Crawley game briefly. But it was a hell of a lineup for what is an 11 changes and considered a backup squad. Verbruggen, Lamptey, Webster, Igor, Samuels, Ayari, Baleba, O'Reilly, Sarmiento, and Ciso and Adingra. I mean,
that's your B team.
Insane, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, that team is good enough to stay up in the Premier League, in my bold take. Like, that's my hot take. Like, that team
just about.
That team is better than the bottom 3. It may be 4th worst, but it's better than the bottom 3. Like, which is crazy. Like, how much we've grown in that respect. And unfortunately, we won 4-0. Adingra, Sarmiento, Webster, and Marco Mahoney getting his first goal before promptly going out on loan as well. But it felt sadly overshadowed, didn't it, by the O'Reilly injury? I mean, we were 9 minutes into O'Reilly's debut before he was substituted off after that Williams challenge. Referee was basically right there, couldn't have front row seats to the challenge, and didn't even give him a yellow card. It was 5 minutes later when he did arguably an even more dangerous challenge on Enciso that if he didn't see it coming, could have really hurt him. Not to say O'Reilly isn't, right? We've lost him for 6 to 10 weeks. Kind of overshadowed the whole thing, didn't it? Brand new signing, immediately put in the squad, presumably with an eye towards having him start or at least play a part at Arsenal. And we've now lost him for anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks and surgery is needed per some of the really, really quality like physio room resources on Twitter, which is one of those underrated things, right, about social media. You get some really good, like useful experts to give you some info, but 6 to 10 weeks is not what you want to read. And it kind of ruined the whole mood.
It did. Yeah. I think the initial response was like 4 to 5 months. And I was like, this is a joke, right? Like it's, but yeah, you wheel out a £25 million exciting signing, right? Like you really want to see him play. Very good thing to do, you know, get him some game time, and just gets crunched by a Crawley player. And it wasn't a good challenge at all. It's running around on Twitter if you want to see it, from all different angles. But I was going to say it was a good performance, but it wasn't, right? I think for those that watched the Crawley game, you know, the scoreline is great. And I think, you know, we had enough quality to see them off. But in large portions of that Crawley game, we did not look good. And sort of, you can promptly see why. One, that was probably our B team. And secondly, why half of them have now gone out on loan. You know, we can get through this Crawley match and send half of the team out on loan because they need to go out on loan, and we'll just move past it. But that's what it was meant to be. Instead, we pick up an injury to what is going to be a first team player for 2.5 months.
Yeah, and I mean it was genuine just moments of Premier League quality for the most part, wasn't it? That took us apart from a lower league team. Like the Adingra goal was phenomenal from Baleba, right? Like unbelievable. The turn and run from Enciso and Sarmiento was absolutely nuts for the second goal. And then set pieces, right? Like you can't Adam Webster, for all of the negatives we have around him, sometimes you simply can't allow that to be a possibility for you. Webster has always been good at set pieces. I remember he scored against Spurs, even, like, you know, he's got some really good moments there. I've just watched Liverpool run up at the entire length of the pitch and go 3-0 up against Manchester United.
Who scored? Just referee.
I am 99% certain it was Mo. So
okay, good.
That's 2 assists and a goal for this game as well now. As someone who made the effort to get him and Haaland in, I'm very smug. This season,
also, yeah, my FOMO, we're going off on a tangent already, but my FOMO of not having like both of them in my squad just immediately prompted me to but now I'm suffering with Nkunku, so whatever. But anyway.
You are not the only one. And Nkunku was one of the most owned players starting the season, though. Yeah, they just won possession back in midfield and literally just carved them apart. 3 passes from the center circle to a goal. Absolutely crazy. All right. Webster scored. Marco Mahoney, really good to see him get a goal. They got a red card late on in the game as well. Their manager decided to try and start a fight with Crofty, who he was once friends with. So that was a great end to the game. That's only the second time in their history that managed to play Brighton. Very much like a local rival if we played each other more often. And we've absolutely hammered them both times. So maybe it seems to be their claim to fame is that they've now injured O'Reilly. So I hope that he can take that as inspiration to come back and be better than ever, because it's going to suck to miss him. But on to Arsenal, the actual one we want to talk about more than anything. Coming into the Emirates, I mean, they're 6 points from 6, just like us, but they are obviously very genuine title contender, right? Like, I'd love to pretend that we are, but we're not yet. But we're coming into the Emirates. It was last season for me, it was the most comprehensive defeat I saw, both in person or on TV. I was there, unfortunately, and typically the missus was working this week, so I wasn't able to go to this one. So classic. But we come in, only a couple of changes. Verbruggen straight into goal. If anybody had any lingering doubts as to who Hertzler's number one was, he was very clear midweek that he was going to have a number one keeper and he was not going to rotate, and they're fully aware. Verbruggen immediately in as the number one, despite 2 wins from 2 in the Premier League. I don't think anyone's going to have any complaints about that, especially after the last 90 minutes we watched him just play.
Yeah. all of our whinging last year and the year before that about keeper rotation has just been squashed. So
love it.
And I love it.
Veltman, Van Heck, Dunk, and Hinshelwood at the back, Milner, and an incoming Carlos Baleba, Mitoma, Pedro, Minty, and Welbeck. So only a couple of changes there. Baleba in for Gilmore and Verbruggen in for Steele. Obviously, we probably would have saw Matt O'Reilly yesterday as well, but not to be. Pretty strong bench as well. Igor on the bench, big addition back. He's back fit. We had Lamptey on the bench. We had Estepinian, big bring back as well. And then we had just like the crazy, insane levels of Estepinian, Ruta, and Ciso, Adingra all on the bench as well. How did you feel about that lineup, and what did you think of the Arsenal one? Namely, of course, Mr. Trossard coming in for his first start in the Premier League this week, inevitably at home to Brighton.
Yeah, naturally. No, it's a good lineup. I think Estepinian's still not fully ready. I think that's why you're sort of playing Hinshelwood at left back. I think hindsight's a wonderful thing because I can pinpoint where things went wrong. But you're asking me about the lineup ahead of time. But yeah, it's a good team, right? You don't want to rock the boat too much. You put your number one keeper in. You go for it. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. So and like we said earlier, this was a free hit for us, right? This is a game where we don't expect anything. So you go in and you do your best. That's sort of how I felt anyway. Was like, let's just see what we can do. We've also seen that we're very bad at starting games this season already. So it was sort of, okay, weather the storm, try and get the crowd a little bit quiet and quietly go about your business. So, but I had no problem with the team whatsoever. I think that's about as good as you could do without putting Estepinian at left back, but I just don't think he's ready for 90 minutes.
Yeah, I agree. I bold prediction think that he will start against Ipswich though. I think that extra 2 weeks is going to be enough for me. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see him in.
Yeah. Does he go for Ecuador duty?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I hope not. I hope he pretends to get a knock and just doesn't go. That's not what I want to see.
Yeah, they're playing Brazil on Friday. So.
Oh, superb. Yeah, that's exactly what you want to see. This stuff's a face. James in the chat, for the first time in a while, I'm feeling extremely confident with the defense. I said much the same on here, and I'm sure you listened to that because you always in the chat, James. Love it. But for Everton, that was the biggest turnaround for me. Just after game 1, you can see how much more defensively responsible the entire team is. And it showed again yesterday, especially for that first half prior to the incident that we'll be talking about here shortly, that has basically all of social media and football media in tears. But I feel like we do look so much more defensively solid and responsible, don't we? In preseason, we were quite often caught out on the counter attack, and we haven't really seen that so far this season at all. We've been much better once the actual season started, and for me, that's the biggest surprise and the biggest reason I think we're walking away with 7 from 9. We're now dangerous enough up front to score goals in every game. But when you're going against these teams, you simply have to be more responsible in the Premier League. And we're now starting to see that. And the points are being ground out, right? As much as they are being cruised out at times under De Zerbi. I think we're going to see that still. But for now, going away to Deitch first game of the season, right? You have to be really smart and pragmatic. And we did. And we won 3-0. So, I mean, it shows for me. And I think that James is right. Like, how do you feel about that defense? Are there worries about it? Do you, especially with the fact that Hertz generally plays a back three, do you think that will change sooner or later, or do you think he may stick with a 4, which is something he's never done before?
So I think he'll stick with 4. I think I say my mojo's at a 9, right? But now I'm going to go and be negative, so I'm sorry. But like, I feel like the last few games, I think there has been an element of luck there for me that we haven't conceded the goals that maybe we should have. I'm not going to go and bring up the XG against or any nonsense like that, but just from an eyeball test, like watching those 3 or 4 games, is that I do think that those 2 breaks from Arsenal in the second half should have been goals. I think Everton, we very easily could have conceded in the first 10 minutes, and it's a completely different game. Xerxes like knees it on the line, right? Like, that's just so stupid, like such a silly mistake to do, but that should have also been a goal. So I agree to a degree that the defense feels a lot more comfortable, right? And I have a lot more trust in what they're doing and how it's being set out. I do think we're still susceptible to a break because of that high line or high-ish line. I think the media is going overkill with how high this line is, but I think we are pushing up a little bit and squeezing a little bit more because that press is so much more intense than we saw last year. But I do think we've got away with a couple so far, and I'm okay with that, right? You make your own luck, and you know they come and go, such as refereeing decisions as well. So I'm optimistic about it. I do think we've got a little bit lucky in the last couple of games, and it does bring me on to Dunk's defending for Arsenal's first goal, because I think he just completely lost flight of the ball and just tended to meander back, which it wasn't very nice. I don't know what you thought about that first goal.
It's something we've seen in Dunk since January of this year. It feels like he's aged 5 years in 9 months. And now when he goes against really quality players, like, he seems to be way out of his depth. I think this break from not getting called up to the England squad is the best thing that could happen to him. I think he just needs to rest. He's played more football than most footballers in the last 18 months.
Didn't have a preseason. So like he was just sat on a bench in Germany for most of it. So like I think we do need to take that into account, that I don't think he's fully match fit.
No, I agree with you. I really don't think he is either. And it shows too, right? Like, it really does show. Like, it sucks, but like, we don't look match fit for some of these players that are coming back. And I think that's going to be the problem with some of these guys, right? And then you've got people like João Pedro, who had a whole summer off, who looks on it, like Welbeck on it. Like, some of these players that have had a full summer, the obvious one, Haaland, right? It's absolutely tearing the league apart with like 7 goals in 3 games. It's absurd. Like, you're seeing it reverberate now around the league. Salah, again, 2 assists and a goal today. Full season off. Like, there's a really big issue there. And they don't care, right? It's money. They're not going to stop having games be played. But I think from a selfish Brighton perspective, and probably one that Dunk would not have wanted, like, I'm glad he didn't get called up this off.
Oh yeah.
I'm delighted he got a break.
Yeah. And going, I think we completely missed the whole Arsenal starting 11 as well, because James put it in the chat, just around Trossard starting and stuff like that. It's a strong team, right? Like, you're going back to Arsenal away alongside Man City away is one of the hardest games you're going to play all season. So I do have them down as genuine title contenders this year. So it was a free hit. Of course, Trossard was going to play, and we found it difficult in the first half. I really do think so.
Yeah, it's I've seen this actually a lot online. What do you make of the idea that our passing has been a lot worse this season so far? We've definitely seen a few wayward passes, right? Everton still stick out to me, where Milner and Van Gaal got into a proper little tiff over a misplaced pass. But there's been a lot of vibes around the fan base on the social media that our passing has been really off first 3 games of the season. Obviously the Crawley game as well, but bit hard to add that one to the mix because it felt like 11 players playing together, not a team, right? Like, we talked about that a little bit. What do you make of that idea that do you see it? Like, what's the eye test telling you? How do you feel about the idea of the passing? Do you think that it's tough going from the drilled world of De Zerbi to maybe more flexible tactics? I don't know. Like, what do you think?
It's a good question. I think the passing is a lot more purposeful, and in that brings risk and brings accuracy, right? Like, I think it'd be interesting. Again, I haven't done my research because I should have, but like just comparing the first 3 or 4 games of this season compared to, you know, the start of a De Zerbi season or when it's fully in flight, I fully expect the number of passes to be significantly lower. And I also think that the number of key passes would be higher because I think we're trying riskier, more purposeful passing. And in that, you're going to see some fail, right? Your accuracy is going to be down because all you need to do is hit one of them. You take Dunk's pass yesterday, just for the goal itself, that's one pass. It's one key pass. Whilst in a De Zerbi or in a Potter world, you would have seen 15 to 20 passes before that pass has been made. So for me, it's riskier. Your accuracy is going to be down. The more you miss, the more you're going to highlight it on videos and reels and shorts and whatever you're going to watch. But I do think there's more of an impetus in a key pass as soon as possible. It's a lot more. It's just quicker, right? It just is. But what about you? What do you feel?
Yeah, well, I have done the research, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, completely shown up. You let me ramble on for 2 minutes.
I did.
I was like,
it was on purpose too.
Let me get the receipts.
And guys in the chat as well, I'd love to hear a guess here. De Zerbi's last season for passing, obviously it encompasses 38 games in the Premier League, not reflective of 3, right, so far. But De Zerbi had a pass completion percentage of 87.1% in the Premier League, not including any of the cups. We're just going Premier League. 87.1% pass accuracy. What do you think Hertzler is at right now? Hertzler ball. And feel free to guess, and anyone in the chat as well, feel free to guess what percentage we're at for Hertzler.
I feel like I've been led into a trap here, so I feel like I need to go higher. So I assume it's around the same.
Okay, you're going to say around 87%. James in the chat is going for 71. He just said it doesn't look as quite as good as last year, and he's gone for a 17% drop off.
20%, yeah.
That's absolutely crazy. Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's 85.4%. Okay. Jay in the chat as well, 60. Yeah, 85. So actually, we're just over 1.5% difference so far. So we're, the eye test, I think we're seeing, and it wasn't meant to trap you, but I think you made a really good, I think you made a really good point that the passes are a lot more deliberate and progressive. And I'm sure come the end of the season, we will have the data on progressive passes. Like we already have it now, but it's a waste of time looking at 3 on 38. Yeah. But I think once we get to that point, I think you will see that being a lot severer than Potter and De Zerbi ball. But I think the key here is that because they are so progressive and severe, I think you're absolutely right in that we notice them more because they're supposed to be more cutting balls through, right? Like if you see them get intercepted and then they have a little argument, like that stays in the head a lot longer than 6 misplaced passes under De Zerbi ball when they've had 500 of them. Like I thought it was interesting. Anyone listening, I hope it allays your concerns that we've dropped off on the pass completion rate because actually we're looking all right. I suspect some of that may play into the fact that we've played 2 teams with 10 men, right? But that also comes with the fact that we're playing good football that's causing them problems. And let's go straight to him. Joel Feldman. I think it was Stephen in the chat wanted to talk about the fact that he is now the master of the dark arts. I think we all low-key crowned Veltman this king of the dark arts once Mopé left. But the start of this season so far at Everton and now, in every game so far this season, starting at right back, he has proven himself to not be anywhere near as off the boil as it seemed that he may be under De Zerbi ball. He looks very much at home, doesn't he?
He does. Yeah. I love him to bits. I really do. He's really funny to watch. I like fun and funny, like two different things. Like just watching him manhandle Trossard and then play act a dive, like when it's very clear he's just thrown him to the floor. Like it's just those sort of things, and the niggly small little gamesmanship things that he does that are just they break up play, they do what they're intended to do. They're there to wind the other team up. I think it's something that Arsenal have actually added to their game in the last couple of years, like this nastiness or this sort of gamesmanship stuff that you kind of just need. And we said a few seasons ago that we were too nice, right? Like and Veltman has really changed that alongside a couple of other players. He's just, and like you said, to his game and to his performance, I think he was really good. Like I think he handled it all fine. When you compare it to the nightmare that Hinshelwood had on the other side, bless him, I think Veltman held up really well. So just kept Trossard very, very quiet. We didn't see him really at all. So very good. And was involved in the changing point of the game as well. So I'm sure people were itching to hear about it. So what did you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought Veltman was superb. And just to talk a little bit, like just a note that I had was the tactical flexibility again. Like under De Zerbi ball, Hinshelwood suffers the entire game against Saka. That's just how it works. But Hertzler choosing to match up Arsenal and allow Hinshelwood to drift central while Timber was doing the same changed the entire thing on its head, because it made Saka have to drift inside, and it ruined his whole game until he came up against Dunk and won that face-off, right? Like, but he kind of went away from being terrorized for almost the rest of the game once he allowed him to match up with Timber. And that's something you wouldn't have seen under De Zerbi. You probably would have saw it under Potter, but I think it's good stuff that we're seeing this kind of like observational skills already.
And the tactical change in the first half as well, right? Like if it's not working, like fix it.
Absolutely. Obviously Milner went off injured in the first 17 minutes and was replaced by Yasin Ayari. So our midfield duo was Baleba and Ayari for basically the entire game at the Emirates. This was a player that most assumed would be going on loan 2 days ago. How happy are you that Ayari stayed? And what did you think of his performance in general before we get to the Rice challenge itself? What did you think about that performance and how he did?
Everyone's waiting for the Rice debacle, but we're just talking about Yasin Ayari instead. He's good. I'm glad he's staying. Again, we need a central midfielder option, and I think he's shown in preseason that he's capable. I just need to see more. And I don't mean more of him in terms of the performance. I just need to see more of him playing. Like I want to be able to see him play more and have more minutes, so that I can make some form of conclusion as to how good or how great he's going to be. But you're at the Emirates. Your Baleba is what, 20, 21. Yasin Ayari isn't far off that. Like it's a young midfielder. You make Hinshelwood drift in, who's 19 years old. Like it's a very young core to be having, especially with Milner coming off. And I thought they handled the game well. I think I love Baleba. I think it's just I'm going off of Ayari and onto Baleba, but I thought they both did great. Ayari missed that chance in the second half, but again, just get your head up. I think everyone's been there. So I thought he did well, especially coming in, right? He didn't know he was going to be playing most of the game. I thought he did really well.
Yeah, spoiler alert, I plan to give Baleba his flowers for this week, like shortly, because I think he was. A lot of people were clamoring for him to start, especially over Milner. If it was going to be him and Gilmore, for example, if he'd stayed. But I thought he was tremendous the last week. But let's talk about it. Right into the beginning of that second half, we had an issue come through with Declan Rice receiving a second yellow card. His first tackle, I don't think anyone can have any concerns that was a yellow. Absolutely 110% a yellow card on 42 minutes. But shortly after the second half, ball goes, I think it was offside or there was a foul or something like that. Anyway, right in the corner, Veltman throws the ball forward and goes to take a quick free kick Not sure who to, because there wasn't anyone there, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, as to whether there was a bit of gamesmanship here. And Rice, seeing the ball was about to be hit, just clips the ball away, stopping the free kick, time wasting. By letter of the law, that's absolutely a yellow card as well. Veltman followed through, booted Rice in the leg. What did you make the whole situation? When you were watching it live and in real time, like what were your thoughts after seeing it from about 80 million different angles and hearing the experts' point of view? What do you think, and the fallout in general? Let's just get straight into the absolute shit show.
Analyze the situation. Yeah. There's loads of different ways you can come at this, and that's why football is so great, because it's subjective, right? Like, some people can feel a certain way, some people can feel another, and that's fine. That's football. If you're talking letter of the law, you're talking that's a second yellow card, right? You get a yellow card for what they've called delaying the restart, right? So if you're talking about the incident in its own realm, then yes, it's a yellow card, right? Is there some ambiguity whether we're getting philosophical here, whether a second yellow carries the same weight as a first yellow, and all of the incidents that we've seen with second yellows being a little bit more lenient than the first? You can talk about that and the history of that too. But technically, yes, it's a second yellow, right? And a lot of people were obviously talking about it, and probably rightly so, because it's changed the game and people have opinions. But for me, it's a yellow card, and if you've got two yellows, that does mean a red. So that's sort of where I am. But what about yourself? Before I go into any more, yellow, red?
Yeah, honestly, and Ali McCoy said it on the TNT commentary initially in real time. I actually thought the red was for Veltman, because I just saw the first immediate replay in real time, saw him absolutely lamping Rice, and I thought, oh bollocks, like he's off. And then they replayed it and gave like the full replay instead, and I'm like, oh shit! Like, and then Welbeck is on the hard mic. I don't know if you were like, if you could hear him on yours, and he's like explaining, like, he did this and this. It's a second yellow. He's off. Like, explaining the whole rules to like half the team, which was hilarious. And then once I watched it back the second time slower, like, it's all very clear on how it happened. But I mean, it's absolutely like dark arts, right? There's no, Veltman isn't kicking that ball to anybody. Like, he's absolutely baiting Rice into that. But I think James in the chat is right. Like, it is all on Rice. Like, he knows the rules. He knows he's on a yellow. Like, it's not Veltman's responsibility not to upset him. Like, it's Veltman's responsibility to, if he sees an opportunity, play the game, right? Something that Brighton have been relatively poor at for 7 years in the Premier League. Like, and I would argue that, and I think Stephen's on it a little bit, like, if he had not kicked Rice, I don't think the ref would have done anything. Actually, I think if Rice hadn't fell over and rolled around as hard as he did, wanting a booking for Veltman, I think it would have just all moved on. I don't think anything would have happened. So, and there's been a lot of like very upset media. Like, Martin Keown was almost in tears on the TNT post-match, like, saying it's not fair because Pedro wasn't booked for his kick away in the first half. And I'm sure we've all seen that on replay 8,000 times now. Like, but for me, like, that's a yellow card too, right? And so was Saka's when Saka did it. So, like, actually, the only time he got it right was the Rice one.
Yeah.
Like, that's the irony in it.
But that's where I'm seeing all the social media nonsense. And it's like, oh yeah, but the Pedro one wasn't. I was like, yeah, but if it was, and it should have been, that does not change the Rice situation in any way whatsoever. So, like, they're completely, like, they're mutually exclusive. We're just saying that the ref got our one wrong. And we'll freely admit that. And I would as well. I'd say Pedro should have got a yellow card. I mean, Herzl has come out and said something slightly different, but it's, you know, again, you could argue this all day, but like, I'm with you. I completely agree with you that the Pedro one, the Saka one, they should also have been yellow cards, right? Like, it's, but that doesn't change the incident itself at its core. It's that the referee got that one right and got the other two wrong. That's it, right? Like, it's still a red card.
I think it's incredibly irresponsible from commentators and then pundits post-match, and then sports journos who are having massive followings post-match as well, to tweet about the fact that the precedent had been set by Pedro not being yellow carded. I think it's insane. Like, are we saying that because Jay Williams wasn't booked for that tackle on O'Reilly, that level of tackle is now free for the whole game and you can't complain? Like, are you nuts? Like, is that, like, what are you talking about? Like, if a player isn't flagged for offside, do we now just get rid of offsides for the game? Like, that precedent's been set. Like, what are you talking about? Like there should the conversation this week in the ref room, if there is such a thing, like, should be like, you effed up on the first two. You didn't F up on this one. The reason it's controversial is because you screwed up the first two times. You got the decision right. Why the hell didn't you do the first two when they were just as obvious, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't see an issue with it. I see the frustration, but like, that is still Rice's fault. Like, Rice has came out and said it too.
Yeah. He knows.
Rice has came out and said verbatim, I know the rules, and by rules, that's the second yellow card for me. I don't have any complaints. And then he's gone on social media later on going he didn't think it was the second yellow. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous.
If there's any doubt around this sort of delay of restart and a real impetus on this for this year, you do have to remember that Man City got fined a hell of a lot of money for delaying the halftime restarts, right? So, like, this is very clearly, or is more likely, I can't say as gospel, but there's probably more of a reaction or more of an impetus on actually getting those delays right. Trust English officials to get 2 out of the 3 wrong, but the one that he did get right was the one that was saying people think is the most controversial because of the implication of it. So strange. I give Veltman his flowers because he's got him sent off there as well to an extent.
Absolutely,
it's a rolling ball. He's not passing it to anyone either. Like, he knows Rice is in the way. So he knows what he's doing. Again, it is dark arts. If you see it go against you, you're absolutely fuming. But if your team does it, it's amazing. So, you take and you give those, right?
And we've seen him do it all the time, right? He made Zaha, like, Zaha was one of the kings of the dark arts, especially against us. He made him look like an amateur. Like, he literally was just like, I wrote the shit that you are doing now, Wilfred. Like, I own you. And I think it's just absolutely mental, really. I mean, Stephen in the chat as well, right? Like, points up, if we're going to keep doing like, what about? Why wasn't Arteta booked for being so far outside of the technical area when Pedro kicked the ball away? Like, he's literally almost on the pitch in our half, like, throwing his hands up, demanding a card. Like, why wasn't he then?
I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole, but I'm not a big fan of Arteta in general. I don't really like him, but I think in that specific incident, I think Arteta is clearly trying to put Pedro off by running towards him outside of his technical area towards the touchline. I don't see how that's allowed. I don't understand how that's even a thing or even why that's something that they continue to allow. But again, it doesn't matter. It's by the by. Should have been a yellow for Pedro, but also Arteta was running towards him outside of his technical area. So, like, what do you want to do?
I would also say I love Hertzler for his media handling already. One, he looked like the most mature man on the panel when Keown and Peter Crouch were grilling him on it, which is unbelievable. But I also love the fact that he flipped it on them because they went, what about Pedro? Why didn't, like, do you not think that was a yellow? And he goes, well, what about the 3 minutes of the 6 that never got played and they blew on 96? And they literally had no answer to it because, like, he's absolutely right. Like, he was like, if we're gonna talk about inconsistencies, he was like, why aren't they allowing all of it? Like, why aren't they contributing injury time? And like, he went through the whole thing and like, it was just silence. Like, they haven't got a response to it. And it's like, I love, like, he's absolutely a shithouse. Like, I can only imagine how much of a dickhead he must have been to play against in his early 20s. Like, he must be such a because he already is. He's showing it, right? He got bucked in the game as well. For kicking off.
It was a tactical one too. I feel like I think he wanted to take that. So I'm impressed with it. And again, we'll go on to other things, but yeah, the whole Herzler handling and he just seems like such a well-spoken individual and is able to talk his way out of those, or MacGyver his way out of those really difficult questions, because it seems like they're letting anyone into that journalist room nowadays, especially with the press conferences and stuff. So good on him for handling it the way that he does, because you have to be quite a big man to do that. I'd be fuming, and you can see it with Arteta, you can see it with Pep throwing wobblies left, right, and rhubarb. So you have to handle it in the right way, and he's made a really good start.
Yeah, it's really good. And obviously, 10 minutes later, to compound the anger, we scored. And of course, it's that man, number 9, João Pedro. Just the clinical, calm, goal-scoring nature of this kid. Like, it's just it's the Glenn Murray replacement we've needed for about since Glenn Murray retired, frankly. Obviously, a totally different player, but like the confidence in knowing we're going to be getting goals from a striker is him. First of all, Lewis Dunk giveth, Lewis Dunk taketh away. He was 100% at fault for the Saka goal, and then was 100% responsible for the unbelievable ball over the top that contributed to the goal for the Pedro tap in, essentially. First of all, what a pass. Second of all, what a great first touch from Minty. And then thirdly, if there's anyone you want following up in that situation these days, it is João Pedro, isn't it? Like, what a player.
Yeah, clinical, like you said. I think you can almost reliable, right? Like you can sort of count on goals when you've got him there. He's still only 22 as well. It's just insane that you have that sort of player available to us. The Minty like run and first touch is really good, like straight in between Saliba and Gabriel. Like, again, people will rave about Arsenal defensively, especially from last year. But Minty made him look silly, and João Pedro always follows up. I think there's just pretty bad defending from Arsenal, but also you have to create the chances in order to score them. I thought it was really good. And then from then on, right, 58 minutes, 59 minutes, you go, right, let's try and win this thing, right? Let's try and go for it. And I think we did to an extent.
Yeah, I think Jay in the chat saying the second half we should have gone for the win and gotten Cisse and a Dingle run earlier. I would present to you the 2 gilt-edged chances they should have scored to put the game away at their end as to why we probably went back a little bit more in responsibility, right? Like that first 10 minutes after the Pedro goal, we could have absolutely been 3-1 down, couldn't we? Like they had 2 chances that really should have been put away. Like Haaland scoring both, right? Like that's unfortunately possibly the difference here. I mean, the subs were all positive. Like Ruta, Estepinian, Adingra, and Cisse on for Welbeck, Mitoma, Veltman, and Minty, right? Like some of those are like-for-like replacements, and some of them are really good to see Estepinian getting minutes, etc. Like it was pretty clear from those subs we were going for a win here. But I think once those 2 chances hit us in quick succession, you saw a slight bit better rigidity at the back, right? Like it was like, okay, like we've had our fun, like shit, like we don't want to go too hard. And
let's go for it to an extent, because like it was dangerous still. Like and that was one of the things that I think we saw the most. But yeah, they should have been 3-1 up, right? They should have scored a couple in that first half as well. And it goes back to what I was saying defensively earlier. But like you ride your luck and you take that and you make your own luck, as people say. So I think you're spot on. We sort of went, whoa, hang on, like we can't go gung ho here because we still have something to lose, right? Like if we were 2-1 down or still 1-0 down, then yeah, like go full gung ho and full send. But I think it was the right level of approach. I think if we played for an extra 5-10 minutes, who knows? But it was a good second half. I think we controlled it, right? I don't think we could have gone for it because of how dangerous they were on that counter attack, especially with Martinelli coming.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, in that last 10 minutes, they made a couple of subs. They brought on Zinchenko for Timber and essentially went to almost like a 6 at the back. And then you saw our subs come on. And from 80 minutes onwards, we had 78% possession and 8 shots, and they had nothing. So like to say that we didn't go for it, I think that's not accurate. I think we absolutely went for it, especially in those last 10 when we saw they were like, okay, now we're seeing it out. They've changed. They've gone a bit more responsible. We're not going to get those chances again. Let's shut up shop. And they did, to their credit, right? Like that's what a team needs to do if they're going to win a title. And we weren't able to break them down. Rude's got three shots, none of them on target in that final 10 minutes. But I thought, overall, like the point was a fair reflection. I think we would have been a bit sneaky to take 3, even with 10 men for that second half, don't you?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's a free hit, right? So you go, right, whatever we get from this is going to be a bonus to what I thought we would get. You know, the game played out the way that it played out. Like you said, the last 15 minutes, including injury time, we did go for it. Like, you know, we had 4/5 of the ball. We had 8 different shots, right? So we did go for it. But ultimately, you're going up against what was the best defense last year, right? And they have some really good defenders. If they put 6 of them on the pitch, then, you know, chances are going to be hard to come by. So it is one of those things. But I thought we did really well. And it's another positive. You're still unbeaten, right? You've now played Man United. You've played Arsenal. You've played Everton. I know, hilarious, but like you still need to beat the team that's in front of you. So it's not like we've played the 3 most least promoted sides and sort of had some easier games here. These are tough. So to come out with them with points from every game and make it through the cup is impressive. So I'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely. Who was your man on the match yesterday?
I don't know. It's tough. I thought
it is, isn't it?
Pedro had a really good game. I thought Matoma had a really good game too. I think just Minty created the goal, but otherwise didn't see a lot from him. Everything went out onto that left side to try and get Matoma past Ben White, and it worked 90% of the time. So it was just a consistent barrage. And again, yeah, Ben White really had trouble with him. So Matoma's up there. I know you want to give flowers out to a certain Belabor as well, but it's probably out of Pedro and Matoma for me, just because I thought they were just consistently dangerous. I don't think defensively Van Hecker gets another shout out. I think he's just being super consistent as always. And Verbruggen made a really good save from one of those counter attacks. Decent all round. I don't want to give it to Pedro because he's going to get half of them this year. So I'll probably say Matoma for this one.
Yeah, I mean, Verbruggen's well up there for me too. I thought he was phenomenal again yesterday. Yeah. I thought he was superb against Crawley. He's excellent. And it's so funny seeing how little he has of the ball now, just in general as a goalkeeper. 41 touches, compare that to the 100 or so he was getting under De Zerbi every single game. It's just crazy. Yeah, I mean, I thought he was phenomenal. I think he had an amazing week. I think Belabor also, right? I think he's also had an amazing week. Anyone who doubted his ability to run that midfield, I think the idea of him and Weaver in that midfield is going to be very exciting. Prior to
they're both huge. They're both over 6 foot. Belabor looks so much bigger than I think he actually is. So I thought Belabor did really well on those counter attacks as well, where he broke up 2 or 3, where he's just so quick and so strong. He just shuffled Saka off the ball a couple of times on those counter attacking moments. So I thought he was really good.
Yeah, I think come Ipswich, I'm assuming there won't be the necessary players fit. I would love to see Belabor and Weaver in there. I would love to see those two play together. I think that's because you allow them Belabor to press forward a little bit. We've seen how much he likes it and actually how good he is at it. I would love that duo prior to O'Reilly coming back.
Caved Gabriel's chest in with a shot at the end as well. That looks so
it was
horrible.
So perfectly placed as well. It was the most brutal one. Yeah, it was awful. Just horrendous. Yeah, I'm just gonna go for the low hanging fruit though. I'm gonna give Pedro the man of the match because whenever you seem to need him, he's there. He does everything. Just unbelievable. Yeah. So after this result here, we've just gone to full time. Manchester United have been destroyed by Liverpool. That puts us third place in the league. Arne Slot got himself 3 from 3. Got to be happy with that as a Liverpool fan listening in. Why you would be, I do not know. But,
what are your initial impressions around the Premier League? So we're 3 games in now, right? The table is not taking shape, but you'll be able to see roughly where people are going to be. Is there any team that's popping out to you as a surprise?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big one for me is Brentford. In terms of doing better than I thought, I expected them to be. They've lost. They're losing Tony, right? Inevitably, and they've lost Raya. I assume that they would drop off somewhat, but they've not. 2 wins from 3 so far, and I think 2-1 at home to Palace, 3-1 at home to Southampton. they lost to Liverpool, right? Like they're winning the games you expect them to win if they want to be a mid-table side. Like I really thought they'd be in trouble this season. And I think the other one, which is quite funny, well, two of them is Manchester United and West Ham, like on the other end of the table, right? Like West Ham is supposedly the winner of the transfer market in the Premier League this season, and that's 2 losses out of 3. And they look quite shit. And then Manchester United ended the season superbly, right? They looked really, really dangerous. Like every time they had the ball last season. I mean, they picked us apart with ease, and same situation, 2 losses from 3. And one of them was a last-minute winner at home to Fulham on day 1, right? Like you talk about luck, like that we've had, like they're lucky to have any points at all this season, because they could have easily have lost that Fulham game as well. What about you?
Yeah, I like how Ipswich have started. I think like there's stuff there. They've had a really tough start. Like they played Liverpool and City in their first 3, but I think they've started as probably the way that they wanted to start. West Ham was also on my list. Just they've spent a lot of money. They've brought in a lot of high profile players. They've kept some high profile players in Paqueta and Bowen, and they just don't seem to be that very good. So it's one to keep an eye on. Bournemouth is in the chat as well. I thought they've got a good team now. Like Evan Nilsson completely passed me that they've got Kepa in goal. Like I must have missed that transfer, but
it was very late.
Yeah, so I completely missed that. Watched it yesterday, and I was like, oh, what a dissension for the poor guy. There's nothing against Bournemouth. The guy was playing in the Champions League with Real Madrid, so so I think they'll do well. Leicester I seem a little bit. I don't think anyone really expected anything. I think Buonanotte comes on and scores straight away, and it's like, okay, please play him, because it seems to be that you actually need him. Otherwise, I think it's panning out the way you'd expect it to pan out. I think you'll see City, Arsenal, Liverpool at the top. I think you'll see Chelsea and Man United struggle. I think Chelsea will probably pick up some points, but I think Man United will be the losers of the season at this rate, because they just don't have it. So
yeah,
it's interesting. I think you got a few more games until you really find out where those clicks are going to be. But I don't think there's any real surprises apart from United and West Ham, like you said.
Yeah, only a point at home to Palace today. Chelsea couldn't happen to 2 worse teams.
I was hate watching that this morning. So yes,
yeah, I watched the Formula 1 instead. There's no way I'm watching that game. I mean, one of the results to talk about this week, and I'm sure you're expecting it, is the obvious one. Quite an astounding turnaround of a scoreline. Everton back at Goodison Park after a rough start, 2-0 up from against Bournemouth at home. A much needed response right after a really poor start. A team that everybody expected to be in a little bit of trouble this year, but they've brought in quite a few players, not starting them, and they're 2-0 up still. Yeah, 2-0 up at home to Bournemouth. Everything looks pretty good. 87 minutes on the clock. Goodison was rocking by all accounts. And the next time I checked, the score was 3-2 to Bournemouth. They conceded in the 87th, the 91st, and the 95th minute. I mean, Leicester are going to get points deductions, right? Like it kind of feels inevitable that Leicester are gone on game 3, which feels shit to say, but like they're not good enough to overcome 6 to 12 point deduction. They're just not. Southampton look woefully naive, and Ipswich are going to be lucky. But are Everton good enough at this point, or do you still have faith in Dyche being Dyche to drag this team to 4th from bottom at this point?
I don't think so. I think aren't they looking at another points deduction as well? So like they might still be in trouble. They went and splashed some cash right at the end as well. They've got Armando Broja in now as well. Like that doesn't make sense. But it's strange. It seems all very reactive. They have financial issues. When it rains, it pours on and off the pitch. Like again, you're 2-0 up. Like just shut up shop, like and get something. I don't see it. I think this might be the year. I feel like we say that every year, but then suddenly, Dyche pulls a rabbit out of the hat. But I don't know. They might be in trouble. I think Forest have started better than we thought, albeit their win was against Southampton. But I think it will be Forest, Southampton, Leicester, Ipswich, and Everton down there. Out of those 5, like 3 of them are probably going to drop.
I mean, Wolves looking not so great either. Everton, 10 goals conceded in 3 games is just shocking stuff. And 2 of them at home to Brighton and Bournemouth, right? Like, that's not good. For Brighton, though, we talked about, a tough start before the international break, and we'll see how things kind of fill out as the season goes on and we start seeing the table take shape. Our next 3 games are at home to Ipswich, at home to Wolves in the Cup, and at home to Forest. Now, that is a list of 3 games that you can see looking pretty good. I mean, if we can take 6 points from our next 6, like before we then switch on to Chelsea, Spurs, and Newcastle back to back, and then Liverpool, Man City as well. Like these are 2 games that we've got to get points from, right? Like we simply have to, because the next 6 after that include Newcastle. Yeah. Newcastle away, Chelsea away, Tottenham at home, Liverpool away, and Man City at home. Like that's essentially as hard as it gets in a schedule.
Yeah, winnable games, and probably need to win them, right, to move into that sort of difficult period of fixtures. So, I think you run into the Ipswich game. Let's hope nobody gets called up for international duty and just give people a week and just hope. I want to see Vifa play again. I want Gruder involved. I want Kadioglu involved. I want to see what they can do. If you don't see them at Ipswich, I fully expect them to be playing against Wolves in the Cup, right? Like switch it up, mix it around, get the new signings on there, give them some game time. But yeah, I think 3 games that, given our start and given the amount that we've spent and given the expectations, are 3 games that we are maybe not expecting to win, but to hopefully win, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would like us to go far in the Cup this year. Whichever Cup, I don't care. But I want us to make a proper run of it. And I think we've got a chance of doing that with one of these 2. Wolves at home with the start they've had. You would think that we've got a really good chance, especially with the players coming back, right? I anticipate the same as you. We'll start seeing some of those players come in and play. Yeah. But 2 weeks off now, some much needed rest for some of these players. There's lots of rumors that Kadioglu will only be gone for a week. But Turkish media saying 4 to 5. So who the hell knows, essentially? We just don't know.
Judging by the experience I had with Turkish Twitter the last few weeks, I don't think they know jot. So we'll probably just wait for the announcement. But
yeah, agreed. All right. Well, I think that's everything. Have you got anything else?
No. I think we're good. It again, the mojo's high. Everyone's happy. I think there was just stay off social media if you are well inclined to peruse it. The Arsenal stuff is a little bit much at the moment, so I'm steering clear of it myself. But I don't know about you. But
no, I mean, it is.
There's a lot of salt.
I mean, it's the 1st of September, and there a lot of fans and even people on the broadcast yesterday were unironically saying, "Is their title seat charge over?" Are you absolutely the amount, how dramatic can you get?
And just corruption, and they don't want us to win it, and it's this is the 3rd game of the season. If you're going to rig it at the end. It doesn't make any sense. So
it's nuts.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to stay clear of it at the moment, because it's just conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory. So
and 2 weeks come at a great time. We can all have some time off and not worry about it, and at home to Ipswich in 2 weeks time, so a game that we should really be looking to get 3 points from. So enjoy your 2 weeks off, everybody, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks to talk Ipswich recap and whatever the hell's gone on in the last 2 weeks, if anything.
Lovely, awesome, thank you.